Start eliminating the toxic exposure around the house, any kind of toxic cleaning chemicals, any kind of hair care products or personal hygiene products that you're using. Start with all those things first, foods, your home environment, and then start thinking about what's in your office.
Welcome to Doctor's Order Special Edition, Your Radio, Your Way. I'm excited to be doing a 3-part series with our show nutritionist, our clinical nutritionist, and expert on all food matters, Kelly Calabrese. Kelly, welcome back to Doctor's Orders.
Thank you.
Now, on today's show, we're going to talk about chronic inflammation. We don't realize some of the things that we put in our bodies can cause chronic problems throughout our body, our systemic system. And one of those things that happens when we're eating foods, especially laced with all these chemicals that are in there, is chronic inflammation is one of the reasons why we have so many problems that we're experiencing today. Isn't that true?
It's correct. Inflammation is a normal response of the body. It's a normal healing response of the body. But chronic inflammation is not a normal healing response. And chronic inflammation is what happens is in our bodies when people have complaints, signs and symptoms, and they talk about having fatigue or brain fuzz or depression or weight issues or any kind of instability in the body and any kind of disease process that they're having, like diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol. This is all related to chronic inflammation. So once we look at chronic inflammation and target chronic inflammation as being the root cause of these diseases, and we actually get the chronic inflammation under control, then we're able to create a healthy well-being for that individual.
Let's start right at the beginning. Define it a little bit clearer for me of what chronic inflammation really is when it comes to, let's start with what we eat. How does someone digesting or eating a Big Mac, how does that contribute to this overall big problem?
Okay, when we eat foods that are fatty, foods that are processed, foods that are genetically modified, foods that are not recognized by the body then doesn't know what to do with those foods, so it's going to create a disease process. And the Big Mac is a perfect example. There was a movie, I believe it was Super Size Me.
Super Size Me, I remember that movie.
Super Size Me.
Yes.
And Super Size Me, the gentleman ate Big Macs and French fries and Coke for 1 month, and he ended up having a serious cardiac situation. It took him 9 months to reverse what he did in 1 month. And he was just eating Big Macs and French fries, and it was only for 1 month. And he created chronic inflammation state in his body and caused a lot of serious diseases. And his significant other is a nutritionist, and she just watched him go down the tubes. He needed to prove a point, but that's a great example that when you're eating high calorie, high sodium, high fat, high processed food that the body cannot recognize, you're going to create a disease state process.
Now, when we say chronic inflammation, from a systemic point of view, from the body, what does that mean? What does it mean to you and me and everybody out there? We're putting all this garbage into our bodies, but what does that mean to our body? What is it doing from a physiological point of view?
Well, it's causing imbalances. It's causing imbalances in the immune system, the neurological system, the endocrine system, all your systems, your cardiovascular system, your lymphatic system, your liver and kidney systems.
Because let's just say you put this garbage in, it's got to go somewhere.
Right.
And a lot of times the body doesn't really have a process to break down some of these chemicals that we're putting in the foods that are causing it. So they just kind of hang out. We see a lot of swelling, lower extremity swelling, edema in patients who have chronic inflammation problems. We see, like you said, fog, because it goes into the brain and you have all these chemicals just floating around in your bloodstream, laying in your body, that are just sitting there and they have nowhere to go because the body wasn't made to get rid of all these different nasty products that we're putting in our system.
Well, that's correct. The liver is designed to help clear the toxic pathways, but if you're putting too many toxins in your body and you have a lot of food toxins and you have environmental toxins and then there's emotional toxins, when you have too many toxins, the liver can only be able to expel or help eliminate toxins at a certain rate. So if you have too many toxins coming in, then the liver gets backed up, and that's when all the systems get backed up, and that's when you have chronic inflammation.
You're listening to Doctor's Orders, Your Radio, Your Way with Kelly Calabrese. She is our nutritional expert, and we're talking about chronic inflammation, and I'm guilty of it. Kelly, I'm overweight, and I drink a lot of coffee. And caffeine is one of the major problems that we have in this society. We stop at our Starbucks, we grab our double lattes, and really, if I'm not mistaken, that is one of our major problems. When we start putting chemicals in our system and things like caffeine, it really does affect affect how we think, how our body responds to it, and we get that sudden spike and high, but when it's down, the body still doesn't, it goes back on almost into a state of craving.
Right. The thing is, Starbucks, it's not the actual caffeine, the cocoa bean that is the chemical, because that's actually natural. It's everything else that Starbucks puts in their coffee. That's the chemicals, and that's the problem. But a lot of people are having endocrine issues because they're drinking coffee on an empty stomach. And when you drink coffee on an empty stomach, then you're actually taking out the endocrine system, specifically the adrenals. And that's where we're having issues. And a lot of people who are having an imbalance in the endocrine system, which is mainly your hormone system, when you're having an imbalance in the endocrine system, then you're just having a vicious cycle all day long. You're going to have highs and lows with your blood sugar, with your energy level, with your thinking, and that's when everyone grabs for the caffeine.
So we get into this habit of trying to, instead of our body naturally managing these issues, we're trying to chemically induce these stimuli to maintain our endocrine system throughout the day. So 2 o'clock rolls around and we're dragging because all we've had is 4 donuts, our Big Mac, and 4 cups of coffee. Our system has now got that sugar high. Our balances are starting to come back down to a normal level, or in some cases, the system has been flushed out of all the good stuff, and now we're starting to drop, and now we're getting tired. That is our body saying, wait a minute, I am just bogged down with garbage.
Yeah, we're medicating our systems. We're trying to put Band-Aids on fatigue levels and our brain fuzz and whatever. And getting back to the food additives or the chemicals that are causing us the craving, whatever you eat, whether you eat candy bars, drink soda, drink Starbucks, whatever you're doing, eat a Big Mac, all these manufacturers are putting special chemicals into their products, so we will crave more and more of the same product. That's what keeps them busy and also
in business.
And in business, yes.
Well, let's talk about, you mentioned the emotional side. And since we're kind of talking about the endocrine system, emotional stress can also cause us to, in my case, stress eat. And that relates to chronic inflammation too, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people use foods to help them with their emotional state, help them with whatever issues that they're having, and they binge eat. They can get on a binge eating situation, and that's what's going to cause another vicious cycle.
You're listening to Doctor's Orders, and that's the voice of Kelly Calabrese. And if you'd like to learn more about what she can do for you, we'd invite you to give her a call for an initial appointment. You can give her a holler at 590-9879. If you're outside the Springs, 719-590-9879. Or visit her website. And Kelly, if I have this correctly, it's fitnessfocusinc.com.
And also, it's optimalwellnessllc.com.
Fabulous. Now, Kelly, quick question as far as the whole overview of this in terms of someone wanting to deal with this. When you're talking about chronic diseases and things of that nature, it all has to do with what you take in, but aren't there other factors that are involved with it as well?
As far as inflammation?
The whole human body and dealing with and reversing this.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to look at the emotional stressors. You have to look at the environmental stressors, the chemical components, and you have to look at lifestyle and your food choices and how you're living your life.
It all starts with food choices, though, obviously, as you've mentioned, with the manufacturers doing all the things that they do to put excitotoxins in our foods.
Exactly.
Touching on a subject that we haven't really hit on yet, which you really didn't think about, is how does the environment affect chronic inflammation?
The environment is a huge, huge factor when it comes to chronic inflammation because we have so many different chemicals. We're inundated with hundreds of chemicals every day when you go to pump your gas or when you're cleaning your house or when you're going down a street that was just recently paved. Paint fumes, just anything. And toxins aren't just chemical. We have bacterial and viral toxins. We have chemical toxins in the form of organic solvents. We have pesticides in our foods. We have petrochemicals, which you'll find you can just go anywhere. You can go to an auto body shop and you're going to have organic solvents and petrochemicals there. You can go to a dentist's office and you'll have heavy metal toxins there, mercury.
So when we're driving down the road and we get that exhaust fumes from the car in front of us.
Yeah, that's toxins.
Those are toxins.
Yep.
And those affect our body. Our body still has to take it in. It has to filter it somewhere. And those things that are being filtered through our body have to go somewhere. Correct?
Yes.
And a lot of times they're stored within our cells because there's nowhere for them to go. Our body's not made, like I said, to release these toxins.
They're stored in our fat cells.
How do we change our behavior? How do we get healthy? What do we need to do in behavior to change some of these things we've talked about?
Well, we start with eating organic, start with making pure food choices, eating everything from the earth, eating everything pure and raw and really clean foods. Start with that first, and then start eliminating the toxic exposure around the house house any kind of toxic cleaning chemicals, any kind of hair care products or personal hygiene products that you're using. Start with all those things first. Foods, your home environment, and then start thinking about what's in your office and what chemicals could be in the office, and start cleaning out your office. And then start thinking about your daily routine of where you're going and what kind of pollutants you're bringing in and changing those patterns.
It sounds difficult. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it sounds like a major challenge to do some of this stuff. And when you think about it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got a cup of coffee sitting right next to me in a styrofoam cup. I'm sure I'm in trouble here today. So my point is, what's the starting point? Let's start with food. We hear organic, naturally grown. How do we go about actually picking the right foods and making those decisions? Where's the starting point?
Well, I always say to people, because it is so overwhelming to really change your entire life and to really think about, when you think about it on the big picture, it is very overwhelming. And so I always say start with baby steps. So I would start with your meats. I would make sure that you buy all your meats that are no hormones, no steroids, no pesticides, that they were raised in a free environment. So you start with all your meats first.
I want to kind of go back a little bit because you just triggered something in my head that I saw online a few weeks ago. There was an article that is related to our children and how hormones in meats and the preservatives that we're putting in our dairy products is causing premature puberty in our children.
That's correct. And that's been going on for about 10 years now. Well, 20 really.
Puberty is kicking in a lot earlier than back 30, 40 years ago. And they have now directly related that to the dairy products, correct?
Absolutely. Well, it's all the animal products. It's all animal. And dairy is animal products because your dairy you're getting from your cow.
It's affecting boys and girls, but it's affecting girls more visibly. And they're saying it can really cause long-term effects down the road when we're talking about reproductive systems, early menopause, problems with all kinds of things. So what do we do when we're talking about taking care of our kids in this manner?
The whole family needs to get on board because those chemicals that we're talking about, the pesticides and the steroids and antibiotics, those are called xenoestrogens. Your body doesn't know the difference between xenoestrogens and the natural estrogen of the body. So that's why we're seeing puberty at such a young age, is because we're having this inundation with xenoestrogens and it's causing this imbalance. And this imbalance and having a very high estrogen load and estrogen dominance is going to be causing all the diseases. So where people need to start is by choosing those animal products that don't have any of those xenoestrogens in them and to feed the entire family. And that's where you start. Of course, that includes the children.
Kelly, wouldn't that include then for us to get off the cow products? I mean, let's be honest. One of the best ways that we can safeguard our family is to get us off products that we know that cause on the human body.
It's every product that's out there, Ted. It's chickens, and we're having issues with fish, and we're having issues with every food source we have. We're having issues. So if we're going to take away, we're not going to be able to eat anything.
Wow.
Nothing.
Grow your own.
Grow your own.
Grow your own, raise your own. We're running out of time on this one. There's so much more we could talk about, Kelly. But as we wrap this up, we were talking about starting with the meats and the dairies. Where do we go? Is some of these health food stores a good place? Whole Foods, is that the place to go to get some of this stuff? Where do we find it?
Wherever we are. I mean, there's going to be health food stores wherever you live.
Can we trust what we're reading in the labels?
No.
Can we trust what's out there?
No.
I mean, you can go and spend the extra $25 at the Whole Food store on all your meats, but are we truly getting organic, quote-unquote, healthy food?
No, not completely. Whole Foods is not completely organic. Natural Grocers is, and that's our local chain here where we are in Colorado Springs. But wherever you are in the country, you're going to have different grocers. You're going to have Fresh Fields. You're going to have Sprouts, wherever you live. I mean, Whole Foods is a conglomerate, so you're going to see them pretty much all over the country.
But look for a local grocery chain that really does promote these, not just organic, that word is so overused, but a really natural approach.
Yes.
Thank you for that. We have 2 more podcasts in this series. In our next podcast, we're going to pick this up right here. We're going to talk about foods, what's in foods, how to shop. We're going to get into some of that. And then in our 3rd podcast, we're going to talk about how all this affects cancer, which is a big problem in our society. So you're going to come back. We're going to do some more podcasts. We're going to pick up where we were left off next week. Kelly Calabrese, Ted, you have some information for me.
I do indeed. And friends, if you'd like to get more information from Kelly, she's very informative and has a great place for you as a resource. Why don't you call for your first appointment to find out how she can offer you some optimal wellness solutions. That's the name of her business. And she can be reached at 590-9879. If you're outside the Springs, 719-590-9879. You can also go online to her website, optimalwellnessllc.com. optimalwellnessllc.com. That's optimalwellnessllc.com. Thanks so much for joining us for this special edition of Doctor's Orders. Be sure to come back and join us again next time here on yourradioyourway.com.